As $1 a month, you can join the Patreon Brew Crew, get exclusive perks, and support the channel. Link down in the description.
I am Sinistar.
In 2005, Namco, the creators of Soul Calibur, released a 3D beat-em-up that was so difficult that it would be more appropriate to call it a beat you up. This is Brad Hawk, and he's about to have a broke cock. This game's opening would lead you to believe that he's a badass that beats the ever-loving shit out of everyone he meets. Well, I'm here to let you know that couldn't be any further from the truth. Welcome to Urban Raid. There isn't much to the story of Urban Raid. Basically, street fighting is running rampant throughout the, well, streets. Publicly, the US military plans to solve this with cameras and fences, but behind the scenes, they're solving the street fighting problem with more street fighting. There's some conflict with rival gangs and whatnot, but the story here is very bare bones, and only about as deep as the puddle of blood that I'm often left in after every game over. It's just there to give us an excuse to start throwing hands. The mission objectives don't really have any story significance either. In true beat-em-up fashion, most of the time, the objective is beat everybody up, or only beat this guy up. But every once in a while, you'll come across a mission that's like, hey, you see this guy? Yeah, break his legs and take his lunch money. But we can't take any lunch money without getting into the real meat and potatoes of this game. The combat. I call it a beat-em-up, but it feels more like a fighting game like Tekken, but you're fighting big groups of enemies. This game has a pretty big variety of combos, special moves, and contextual attacks that you can perform, but I'll be honest, I'm not great at fighting games. If I do end up doing some kind of cool special move, I promise you that about 80% of the time that it was just an accident. Just the normal press square over and over punching combo will take you pretty far in this game, and it's also great for juggling enemies. But you can perform different directional attacks by entering different directions on the left analog stick before performing a strike or a grab. And this is important because the more you damage an enemy in a single area of their body, the more damage they'll take in that area, and the chances of them being dazed or stunned are increased. But keep in mind that this also applies to you, so if a guy keeps repeatedly hitting you in the face, you're going to take more damage when you get hit in the face. So make sure to block and protect your beautiful face. But I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, because this is not how I fight in this game at all. My usual go-to strategy is run in with reckless abandon and start swinging until I eventually get stuck in an enemy grab or combo, and then start spamming the evade button and pray that I can get out of said combo or grab with enough health to finish the fight. And then I proceed to fight like a cornered animal for the rest of the fight. You have a special meter underneath your health bar that builds up whenever you deal or take damage. And once you build up enough meter, you can perform special moves called SPA, almost all of which can make you temporarily invincible and can break you out of a stunned state when you perform them. A few examples are a get off me button, a falcon punch, a damage buff for yourself, and my favorite is when you start swinging rapidly with lightning fists. If it wasn't for these SPA abilities, I for sure would have never finished this game. Well, that and the evade button. All the evading you'll be doing is tied to one single button. Your character will glow to let you know that you've just successfully dodged an attack, and dodging a string of attacks or reversing a grab are some of the most satisfying things you can do in this game.
Look at Randy Orton slithering.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Here's the cover.
Besides winning, of course, which I rarely do. Though I could probably fight better if I took the time to memorize all of the game's tutorials. This game very slowly drip feeds its tutorials at you for about a quarter of the game's runtime, but it's okay because it doesn't pause the game or force you to do them. It's just like, hey, you could also do this thing. It might help you see a few less game over screens. But like the fool I am, I will either not pay attention to it because I am too busy decking the schnoz out of some back alley goons, or I did read it but I forgot because I have the memory of a goldfish. Each time you complete a level, you can allocate some stat points into Brad Hawk, but I promise you that in the beginning of the game, you want to prioritize damage. Max out those damage stats all the way, because there's not going to be many moments where you can deal damage, because 80% of the time you are going to be stun locked, juggled, and comboed into oblivion. You can invest into defense, but considering that you only get 2 or 3 points at a time, it's a huge investment in the beginning because defense is split up between all of the sections of your body, your chest, head, arms, and legs. So you can invest in defense early on if you're confident that you can block or evade most attacks. But if you can't, you're only making yourself a slightly more durable punching bag bag, and the attacks you do land won't be doing as much damage as they could be doing. But another reason to invest into damage early on are for the timed missions you'll have to do later in the game, and if you don't have the damage output to complete these missions in time, you'll effectively be soft-locked. The enemies in Urban Reign will rarely ever attack you one at a time. If it's you against 6 other guys, then most likely all 6 of those guys are going to jump you all at once. And if you want to survive, not only are you going to need to keep tabs on all of them as you fight, but you're going to need to get really good at playing as Brad Hawk. Yeah, sadly, one of the only downsides I have about this game is that for the first 30 levels or so, you can only play as Brad Hawk. You do eventually unlock other characters that can assist you in select missions, and you can switch over and play as those characters mid-combat, but if Brad Hawk loses all of his health at any point, even if your partner is still alive, it results in a game over. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with Brad Hawk. He's got some of the best moves in the game, and once you fully upgrade his stats, he can be a damage-dealing demon. It's just that I would like to play as other characters, and when you go into a mission, Brad Hawk has to be one of your 2 characters. If this game had a more involved story that showed more of Brad Hawk talking and being a character, then I would probably find him more endearing and probably wouldn't mind as much. The opening of the game is really the only time that he talks.
Uncertainty creates fear, and fear creates money. But those days are over now. My name is Brad Hawk. I'm a professional.
That, and when you punch an enemy in the face, he says,
Good.
It's a shame too, because he's voiced by Steve Blum, the voice behind Spike Spiegel, Orochimaru, Wolverine, and much more. It's like they had him come into the booth, say the opening line for the game, do his attack sounds, and then said, well, that's it, thanks for stopping by, champ. The game has a secret 2-player mode for the story mode you can activate with a cheat code. The only downside is that the camera is tied to the first player, but it's not that hard to work around. Once you have other characters unlocked, the second player can play as whoever they want, but the first player is stuck as Brad Hawk. But it's not so bad, because over the course of the game, Brad learns and copies other people's moves, so about halfway through, his moveset is like an amalgamation of everybody's moveset. He's like the Kakashi of Urban Reign, which is funny because he says,
I do things my way.
and my way is your way. Now, I didn't get any footage of it, but me and my nephew managed to finish all 100 levels of this game in 2-player mode. Yes, this game has 100 levels, most of which can be played in 2-player, but there are some where the first player is going to have to fight solo. We never got around to trying out every single character, but our favorites were Grim with his fast boxing style and Glenn with his powerful wrestling moves. The team-up attacks we were able to do were awesome, and I love that every time we got an enemy on the ground, one of us would beat his face in while the other one kicked him. But even in 2-player mode, this game is no walk in the park. When the game begins, it eases you into it by throwing some pretty easy chumps at you, but every 2 or 3 levels, the game will throw one guy at you, one singular guy who will put his foot in an envelope and repeatedly mail it to the address that is your ass. But as I got used to seeing the game over screen more than the sun or my own family, I slowly began to love this game. I love this game for the same reason I love the Dark Souls series, Stockholm Syndrome, but more than that, it's the feeling of overcoming a challenging adversary. And in Urban Reign, when you win a fight, the game goes in slow motion and it plays this sick guitar riff. But more than that, as I fight these bosses, I see the moves that they're using against me, and I think, I didn't know you could do that. And by the time I beat them, I might have learned a new move or tactic that I can implement in future fights. But unfortunately, that doesn't work with every single move you might see the enemy using. You see, a lot of your moves are unlocked as you complete missions, so as you play through the first quarter of the game, a significant portion of your move list is locked away. And what's unfortunate about that is that the enemies that you fight don't have any kind of restriction on what moves they can and can't use against you. So for about a quarter of the game, you are fighting at a disadvantage. On the other hand, it is really satisfying to unlock and finally be able to use the move that the previous enemy has been pounding you into the dirt with for the last hour or two. But as you continue to play, the game will ease you into a false sense of security, making you think, okay, I think I'm getting pretty good at this game, only to throw another boss your way and remind you how much further you have to climb. But if every boss is a hill to be climbed, then I think Golem would be a damn mountain. I think this guy is where most players quit playing playing this game, as he's downright unfair. He has a ridiculous amount of health, deals a ridiculous amount of damage, has super armor, and punishes almost every attack, dodge, grab, or reversal that you manage to do. But that's just the one-on-one fights against him. In later fights, you'll have to fight him while he's paired up with a partner. Sometimes that partner's just a normal dude, and other times it's a copy of him. Most people resort to cheesing him with a weapon, and I do believe that I am one of those most people. Oh yeah, you can also use weapons in this game, but unless you're fighting Golem, it's not really worth it. The way you pick up weapons is a little finicky, and when you finally do pick up a weapon, if you take a single hit, Brad will drop the weapon as if his hands are covered in grease. Even if you do manage to hold on to a weapon, Brad's attacks with it are so slow that it leaves him wide open. And it's not fair at all, because when an enemy has a weapon, I swear you have to beat them up for 2 or 3 business days to get them to drop it. When a weapon flies out of someone's hand, it'll fly around in the air for a moment. You can either catch it and use it, or attack it and send it flying. I find the latter to be the better option, because it'll either make the enemy fight you mano a mano with fisticuffs, or make them run to go grab their weapon, leaving them wide open for an attack. Using this tactic against the final boss, Shinkai, makes the entire fight way more manageable. And I'm not kidding when I say I don't know how you would defeat this guy otherwise. His sword gives him insane range, does stupid damage, includes one attack that's an instant kill, and allows him to evade and punish almost every conceivable attack I could throw at him. But luckily this fight takes place in a very small arena, and once you disarm him of his sword, he's a lot easier to grab and throw around, and you can just keep throwing him into the fence until he's sleeping with the fishes. But, plot twist, he's not actually the final boss of this game, because that was just level 99 out of 100, and this game made sure to keep the promise it made on the back of the box. It turns out the one behind it all is the man in the beginning of the game that's running for governor, but I would barely call this a fight at all. He does have a gun, and that gun can send your health bar to 0 after 1 or 2 shots, but you can send his health bar to 0 after just 3 or 4 hits. Bro is literally all talk and no action. After that, Brad Hawk walks away like it's just another Tuesday, and that's the way the game ends. Urban Reign is one of the best fighting games I've ever played, with a deep and rewarding combat system and incredible sound design, and while it is incredibly difficult and demanding, I think that the players who are willing to meet and overcome that demand will find that there's a lot of fun and satisfaction to be had in this game. It's a PS2 classic that I believe deserves a sequel, or at the very least, a port to modern consoles. Look, if the guy who sucks at fighting games is asking for a fighting game to come back, I promise you, it's because that game is really
Good.